My name is Sophia Miller. I'm 39 years old, currently living in Boston, and I'm the chief executive officer of a pharmaceutical company. My life used to be calm and steady, the way people often imagine a picture-perfect family. A successful husband, a sweet daughter, and a warm home in the heart of the city. But it all collapsed in a single dinner. It was our 15th wedding anniversary. A luxurious restaurant, candlelight shimmering, piano music playing softly in the distance. I sat waiting for dessert, guessing that my husband would bring out a surprise gift like he did every year. Instead, Ethan placed a white envelope in front of me, his eyes devoid of emotion. He said only one sentence: "We need to do a DNA test for Olivia." No words of love, no hesitation. Just one suffocatingly cold line. I thought I had misheard. Olivia is my daughter. The child I nearly died giving birth to. But Ethan's next words were even more brutal. "I have reason to believe Olivia isn't my biological child. And Sophia, I'm not sure you're the only one who knows that. What would you do if the person you'd been with for 15 years suddenly doubted his own blood? Would you have the courage to face the truth, no matter what it turned out to be?" Leave a comment if you've ever been in a situation where trust was broken. Hit like if you believe love doesn't need DNA. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow the rest of this story, because what I discovered after that shattered me completely. I don't remember exactly how I left the restaurant. Maybe I said goodbye mechanically, maybe I walked out without a word. But I remember the chill of the steering wheel as I sat in the car, and the way my heart pounded as if someone were knocking hard against my chest. We said nothing on the way home. Ethan stared straight ahead, his hands gripping the wheel until his knuckles turned white. I glanced at the white envelope in my purse, the thing that had ripped away all my peace in a single moment. The moment we stepped inside, Olivia peeked from the top of the stairs. "Why are you home so late?" Her voice was still innocent, light. Before I could answer, Ethan kicked off his shoes and snapped, "Go to your room. Adults need to talk." I saw her expression falter. She frowned slightly, sensing something was wrong. But she didn't ask, only turned quietly and went upstairs. I heard her footsteps pause on the landing. She hadn't gone to her room. She was listening. Ethan tossed his coat on a chair. "I don't have time for this pretending anymore. Tomorrow I'll call Dr. Reynolds for the test. I need results as soon as possible." I looked at him, trying to steady my voice. "What are you thinking, Ethan? We had Olivia 3 years after we married. I never betrayed you. Why suddenly believe an anonymous letter?" Ethan laughed, but it wasn't the gentle laugh I once knew. It was twisted, mocking. Because that letter wasn't vague. It was detailed. Very detailed. It said Olivia has blood type AB, while I'm O and you're A. I froze. I remembered the time Olivia had a severe throat infection in first grade, and we had her blood tested to rule out allergies. But I had never paid close attention to the results. Ethan had taken them from the doctor, skimmed through, then filed them away. I stepped back. "You think I lied to you for 15 years because of a blood type?" He stayed silent for a moment, then pulled out his phone, opened his email, scrolled down, and shoved the screen toward me. "Read it." It was an email from an unknown address, no trace of the sender. But the content was cold, merciless. "Olivia isn't Ethan's child. The blood type doesn't match. She is the result of one of Sophia's past mistakes. Ask her about the emergency room in 2008. The night she was admitted alone." My legs went numb. The emergency room in 2008. There had been one night when I experienced light bleeding from stress while pregnant with Olivia. I hadn't called Ethan because he was away on a business trip in Seattle. I only stayed at the hospital for a few hours before being discharged. Ethan stood a few steps away, yet the distance felt wider than ever. I whispered, "You don't believe me anymore." He avoided my eyes. "I don't know what to believe anymore, Sophia. I may have lived in a family that wasn't even mine. And you just stayed silent. Because I did nothing wrong," I said sharply. "I never betrayed you. Olivia is our daughter. You were there in the delivery room. You cried when you saw her. And what if she isn't mine?" He bit out each word. "Have you ever thought about that?" Before I could respond, we heard hurried footsteps upstairs. Olivia stood at the top of the stairs, her face pale. Dad, I'm not your daughter? I spun around. No, it's not what you think, Olivia. She stepped back. I heard everything. It's just, your dad is confused. There was an anonymous letter. And Dad trusts a stranger over Mom. Ethan stayed silent. Olivia turned and ran into her room, slamming the door. I heard the lock click. I leaned against the railing, my heart sinking. The air in the house was as heavy as a storm about to break. That night, Ethan slept on the couch. I couldn't close my eyes. I sat in Olivia's room, hugging her pillow, breathing in the faint scent of soap, a hint of vanilla from her shampoo, and the essence of her innocent childhood. I opened my laptop. A month earlier, I had also received an anonymous email. I had skimmed it and deleted it, thinking it was spam. But now I dug it up from the archive. The man living with you may not be who you think. He may have secrets of his own. Check the company's financial statements, there are some interesting transfers. As I read that line, a chill ran down my spine. Because just a week ago, I had seen a strange charge on Ethan's secondary credit card a weekend at a seaside resort. Yet he had told me he was attending a medical conference. I started to realize that maybe I wasn't the only one being tested in this family. During the days waiting for the DNA results, the house felt smothered by fog. Ethan left early for work, came home late, barely speaking to me beyond the necessary words. Olivia kept to herself, picking at her food before retreating quietly to her room. The emptiness inside me grew, and to quiet it, I began to revisit memories I had buried for years. That night had been 16 years ago, yet every time I closed my eyes, I could still hear the wail of the ambulance cutting through the dark. I was 6 months pregnant when the bleeding started. I remember the terror on my face as my cold hands clutched my belly, and the despair of calling Ethan but getting no answer because he was away. I had no choice but to call for help and go to the hospital alone. When the emergency room doors swung open, the sharp smell of antiseptic filled my nose. Overhead, the fluorescent lights were blindingly bright. I lay on the gurney, heart racing, tears streaming. A young nurse stepped up, her voice firm but gentle. "Miss Miller, my name is Marjorie. Don't worry, we'll check you right away. Just breathe steadily." I remember her eyes so clearly, quick, with a flicker of nervousness. Her hand on my wrist was icy cold, yet somehow it gave me a strange feeling as if I had to place my full trust in this stranger. That emergency shift was chaotic. I heard the doctor calling out vitals, other nurses rushing to grab instruments, and Marjorie standing by my side whispering, "It's okay, the baby's okay. We'll keep both you and the baby safe." When I woke up, I was in recovery. The attending doctor said the situation was under control and I just needed a few more days of rest. But when I asked about Marjorie, no one mentioned her. I figured she was just one of many night shift nurses, so I didn't think much of it. But that memory came surging back when I read the anonymous letter. The emergency room in 2008. That night it was just me, the baby in my belly, and a nurse named Marjorie. I sat silently for hours on the sofa, scraps of memory stitching into a blurry picture. I remembered that when I was discharged, the paperwork they gave me had a few odd crossouts. I remembered Marjorie's tense look as she signed the monitoring chart, like she was hiding something. And I remembered one detail I had ignored. Before I left, Marjorie leaned in and whispered, "Take care of yourself, Sophia. There's a lot you don't know." The next day, I opened my laptop and started searching for information. The hospital had since merged, changed its name, and most of the staff had moved on. I typed Marjorie Nurse Boston 2008 but only found a few vague results. Her name had disappeared from healthcare not long after. No license record, no sign of a transfer. It was as if she had vanished. While I was lost in thought, Olivia knocked on my door. She peeked in, eyes red. "Mom, is Dad mad at me?" I pulled her to sit beside me. "No, Olivia. You didn't do anything wrong. But I heard Dad say, 'I'm not his daughter.' Mom, is that true?" I hugged her tightly, my chest twisting. "You're my daughter. Don't ever doubt that. I gave birth to you, raised you day by day. No matter what happens, you will always be mine." Olivia buried her face in my shoulder and spoke between sobs. "I'm scared. I'm scared Dad will leave. I stroked her hair, steadying the tremor in my voice. Even if anyone leaves, I'm here with you. Always. After Olivia fell asleep, I tossed and turned until morning. The next day, I went to the old hospital. The main building had been renovated, but the annex where I once stayed was still there. The familiar disinfectant smell made me shiver. I asked at the front desk about a nurse named Marjorie. The young clerk looked surprised. I'm sorry, which Marjorie? A lot of people have worked here over the years. I gave the specific year. She frowned. 2008? I'm not sure, let me check. A moment later she returned, lowering her voice. That nurse's record isn't in the system anymore. But I've heard some of the older staff mention she quit suddenly after some incident. I left the hospital with a heavy heart. An incident? Could it be connected to my delivery? That evening when I told my sister Denise, she fell silent. Sophia, do you think Olivia might have been switched at the hospital? I shuddered. Denise, don't say that. But if the anonymous letter nailed the exact date, and that nurse disappeared, then it's not baseless anymore. I shook my head, but inside I was in turmoil. Marjorie's image haunted me, her strained smile, her unsettled gaze, and those half-spoken words. Ethan remained distant, hardly acknowledging my inner struggle. He coolly waited for results, treating them as the only proof that mattered. But for me, the fear was much bigger. The fear that I'd lived my whole life with a hidden truth, one only Marjorie could unlock. I began tracing those fragments of memory, determined to find that nurse from years ago. Because if there was one night that decided everything, it was that night, the night when Olivia and I should have been bound by blood, but were overshadowed by an unspoken mystery. On the day we got the test results, I sat in the exam room with icy hands, my nails digging into the other palm. Ethan sat across from me, back straight, eyes like stone. The room was so quiet I could hear the wall clock ticking, each second dragging. The doctor came in, holding a thick file, his face grave. He sat, looked at us, and opened the file. His voice was even, clinical, like passing a verdict. According to the analysis, the probability that Ethan is Olivia's biological father is 0. Paternity is 0%. I felt my heart plunge into a void. Ethan leaned back and scoffed. I knew it. I've lived in a lie for 15 years. He stood, grabbed his coat, and said through clenched teeth, I'm moving out tonight. And Sophia, I'm going to court for custody of Olivia. The child deserves to know the truth about her mother. Ethan, stop. I jumped up, trying to take his hand, but he pulled away. You're going to destroy everything based on one result? Don't you remember our years together? He didn't answer. The door slammed behind him, the echo thudding in my chest. I collapsed into the chair, dazed. The doctor was still there, looking at me with sympathy. I forced a smile, but tears had already spilled. As I got up to leave, he gently called me back. Sophia, I should tell you something privately. I turned, heart pounding. He lowered his voice, worry in his eyes. I reviewed the data carefully. It's not just that Ethan isn't the father. The records also show Olivia's DNA doesn't fully match yours. I went numb. What did you say? That's impossible. I gave birth to her. I remember every contraction, every drop of blood. How could it not match? He spoke slowly. The results are very clear. This isn't a technical error. I had it checked twice. Same outcome. The only possible explanation is Olivia may have been switched at birth. All sound cut out. My ears rang, my palms shook. No, no way. I held her on my chest right after delivery. I remember how it felt. He set his hand on the table, softening his tone. I believe you. But in hospital settings, serious mistakes have happened. I recommend you contact the hospital where you delivered Olivia and request the original records. That's the only way to learn the truth. I nodded, eyes blurring. Driving home, I felt like a ghost behind the wheel. The familiar road looked foreign. All I could see was Olivia's face, her round cheeks, her bright smile. I'd cradled her first steps, nursed her through fevers, listened to her giggles. How could anyone tell me she wasn't my child? When I got home, Ethan's suitcase was gone from the hall. A note on the table, just a few lines in his handwriting. I can't live in this lie. Prepare yourself for court. I tore the note up and dropped into a chair, my head spinning. A small sound on the stairs pulled me back. Olivia stood there, gaunt, eyes swollen. Dad left, didn't he, Mom? My throat tightened, I could only nod. She came closer and sat beside me. Mom, I heard. Dad said I'm not his daughter. Is that true? I wrapped my arms around her, tears streaming. Olivia, you are my daughter. I gave birth to you, raised you every day. That never changes. She hiccuped. But I'm scared. If he's not my dad and you're not sure then. Who am I? The question sliced through me. I had no answer. I could only hold her tighter, as if I could keep our cracking world from falling apart. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat alone in the living room, staring at our family photos on the wall. Olivia smiling, holding Ethan's hand on our first trip. Her 12th birthday, all of us blowing out candles together. Those memories couldn't vanish because of a lab result. But the doctor's words kept echoing. Olivia's DNA doesn't match yours, either. If that's true, then where did Olivia come from? Where is the child I gave birth to? And for 15 years, had we been living through a terrible switch without knowing it? When dawn broke, I had decided I would go back to the old hospital where everything began. Only there could I find a lead to the truth. But right then, what scared me even more than the truth was Olivia's eyes. Her bewildered gaze seemed to wait for me to give a clear answer, and I, her mother, had nothing but an endless emptiness in my chest. I drove north, the road stretching on forever. The Maine sea breeze slipped through the window crack, sending a chill through me. It had been 15 years since I left that hospital carrying Olivia in my arms. Today I returned with a mountain of doubts weighing on my heart. The old hospital had a new name, the gate repainted white, and a new building added inside. But the East Wing, where I had once been in emergency care, was still there, the gray brick walls and the old frosted windows. I stepped into the lobby, the familiar antiseptic smell twisting my stomach. A young clerk at the front desk looked up and smiled. How can I help you? I took a deep breath. I want to find the records of my delivery in January of 2009. I know this is difficult, but I need the information. She looked flustered, then shook her head. The system only stores records from the last 10 years. If you need older, you'll have to file a formal 5 request, possibly with a court order. I felt the walls closing in. As I turned away, my eyes landed on a wooden plaque on the wall, retired staff honor roll. Among the faded names, I saw a familiar one. Helen Keller, head nurse, retired 2018. I asked quickly, is Mrs. Keller still nearby? The clerk smiled. Oh, Mrs. Keller stops by from time to time. Coincidentally, she has a checkup here today. You can wait a bit. My heart pounded. Half an hour later, a woman around 70, short and trim with neatly cut silver hair and bright eyes, came down the hall with a cane. I approached and introduced myself. When she heard my name, Mrs. Keller froze, her eyes widening. Sophia Miller. You were the emergency C-section that night. I could never forget. You lost a lot of blood. I remember clearly because I stood next to the doctor during your transfusion. My whole body trembled. I took her hand, my voice catching. Mrs. Keller, I need you to tell me the truth. I just got the DNA results. Olivia. She isn't genetically related to my husband. And worse, the results show she doesn't match me either. Please tell me what happened that night that I don't know about. Mrs. Keller sighed, a shadow passing through her eyes. I've agonized over it for years. That night was utter chaos. 2 nurses called in sick, and maternity had only 3 people on duty. You were rushed into surgery while we were handling another vaginal birth. I remember a moment when several newborn bassinets were rolled into the hallway for checks. The hall lights flickered, and the bassinet tags were skewed. I went still, my heart hammering. You mean there might have been a mix-up? She nodded, her hand tightening on the cane. A week later, I recall a man came to the hospital, insisting on a blood test for his baby. He said the child didn't look like him at all. But the head of the department brushed him off, saying it was normal. The records went quiet after that. The room spun. That man, did he give a name? Mention his wife or child? Mrs. Keller furrowed her brow, then shook her head gently. I only remember he was tall, brown-haired, with a hollow, sleepless look. I regret that I couldn't do anything then. Everything was a mess, and everyone was worried about keeping silent. I covered my face, tears pouring down. The scattered pieces of memory were finally aligning. Someone else had suspected. Maybe they were Olivia's biological parents. And if so, where was my real daughter? Mrs. Keller set a hand on my shoulder, her voice softening. Sophia, I can't be certain, but the possibility of a switch is real. If you want the truth, start with the list of mothers who gave birth that day. I don't keep anything now, but I know some paper records were never digitized. You should look in the old archives. She wrote down an address where paper files were still stored. I'm telling you this because I want peace of mind too. I hope you find the truth. I gripped the paper and thanked her. On the way back, my mind swirled. A crooked bassinet tag. A father demanding a test. And a hospital trying to bury everything. That night, Olivia came into my room, eyes puffy. Mom, I had a nightmare. In it, someone called me by another name. I woke up and could still hear it. I pulled her into my arms, my heart burning with salt. I couldn't tell her a truth not yet clear. I only whispered, no matter who calls, you're still my Olivia. I won't let anyone take you from me. But deep down, I knew I was standing on the threshold of a truth with no way back. In the old archives Mrs. Keller mentioned, I sifted through dusty paper files. Yellowed stacks, nurses' messy handwriting from years ago, the rustle of pages making my heartbeat race. And then, on the entry for January 4th, 2009, I saw another name besides mine. Natalie Owens delivered a baby girl, no complications. There were only 2 baby girls born that day. One was me. One was her. I dropped into a wooden chair, my hands shaking. Natalie's name haunted me for a week. I started searching online, typing each letter into the bar. The results led me to a small town in New Hampshire. An article about a veterinary clinic popped up, showing a brown-haired woman in a white coat smiling kindly next to a dog. The caption read, Veterinarian Natalie Owens and her daughter Lena. I zoomed in. My heart skipped a beat. Lena looked about 15, slender, long hair, an oval face, all of it like a reflection of me as a teenager. I couldn't believe my eyes. I had once looked in the mirror at 16 with almost the same face. That night, I sat in the living room with my laptop open. Olivia came downstairs, hair messy, eyes sleepy. Mom, why aren't you asleep? I quickly closed the screen. I'm just reviewing some work files. Olivia leaned on the railing, as if she wanted to ask more, then stopped. I knew she was raw and sensitive. I couldn't reveal this secret until I had solid proof. A few days later, I drove more than 3 hours to New Hampshire. The town was peaceful, with winding streets, scattered houses, and lush gardens. The veterinary clinic sat at the town's edge, glass doors gleaming, warm yellow lights inside. I parked, sat still for a few minutes, heart pounding. I didn't dare go in. I was afraid that once the door opened my life would never be the same. Through the glass, I saw a woman I assumed was Natalie talking with a client. Her voice was warm, her smile gentle. Behind her, a girl was tidying a table, long hair tied low. I stopped breathing when she looked up. Lena. In that moment, it felt like I was seeing my younger self. I decided not to go in. I watched from a distance. When the client left, Natalie said something, and Lena nodded, then opened a violin case on a chair. I went numb when she set the instrument on her shoulder. Those slender fingers moved across the strings, and the sound rose, the very piece I taught Olivia when she was 8. It wasn't a common piece. I had transcribed it from an old melody my mother used to hum. Goosebumps swept over me. How did Lena know it? Who had taught her? Or was it an invisible thread, a blood-deep memory passed down from me? The violin rang steady and pure, achingly beautiful. I broke down crying right there in the car. The doubts and fragments finally began fitting together clearly. After a while, I calmed myself and stepped out. I wasn't ready to confront them, but I needed to hear Natalie's voice. I walked to a small cafe across the street, ordered a cup, and sat by the window where I could see the clinic. At dusk, Natalie locked up, with Lena by her side. They walked shoulder to shoulder, close and easy. Lena had a backpack on and carried the violin case, talking and laughing. Natalie turned and laid a hand lightly on her daughter's shoulder. I had made that same gesture with Olivia countless times. It felt like someone wrung my heart. I wondered, if there hadn't been a mistake that day, would that girl have been my daughter? And my Olivia? Would she have been Natalie's? Driving home in the dark, tears blurred my vision. In my head, the violin kept playing the melody of my childhood, now flowing from the hands of a child who had no idea who I was. When I got home, Olivia was asleep. I sat by her bed, watching her peaceful face in the nightlight's glow. I kissed her tousled hair and whispered, "You are still my daughter, Olivia, no matter what happens." But inside, a riptide surged stronger than ever. I couldn't deny what I had seen. Lena didn't just look like me. Even the smallest details seemed designed to remind me that a switch had happened. The next day, I reached out to an old friend-in-law. I needed to know how to obtain the delivery records from that day without waiting for a drawn-out process. I knew I had to face Natalie, but I didn't yet know how to begin. Inside me, two faces lived side by side. Olivia, the daughter I had raised with all my love, and Lena, the child who carried my blood but had grown up in another mother's arms. Never in my life had I felt so split in two. Natalie and I met for the first time at a small roadside cafe. We were both tense, but in her eyes, I saw sincerity and the same worry I carried. We talked for hours, from the delivery memories to the oddities we had each noticed in our daughters. In the end, we decided to do a discreet test without telling Olivia or Lena. Natalie bit her lip, her voice trembling. "I'm scared, Sophia. But we need to know the truth. At least to protect the girls." On the day we received the results, I could barely breathe at the sight of the clear numbers on the page. Lena is my biological daughter. Olivia is Natalie's biological daughter. I sat in silence for a long time, my mind blank, then felt as if the entire world had crumbled. For 15 years, everything I believed in turned out to be an illusion. That night, I sat in front of Olivia, my hands clenched to keep them from shaking. She looked at me, her clear eyes already shadowed by doubt. I took a deep breath and slowly told her the truth. Each word felt like a blade cutting into my heart. Olivia sat frozen for a moment, then sprang to her feet. "You always said you'd protect me. What about now? Who am I to you? A hospital's mistake? A child who was switched?" "No, you're my daughter, Olivia. I don't care about blood. You're everything to me." I burst into tears and tried to take her hand. But Olivia pulled away, her face streaked with tears. "You knew, and you hid it from me. You chose to do the test behind my back. Didn't you trust that I was strong enough to hear the truth?" "That's not it, honey. I just wanted to protect you from this pain." Olivia shook her head, eyes red. "I don't need protection if it means being kept in the dark. I don't want to hear any more." That night, while I sat by the window, Olivia quietly packed a small backpack. I heard the door slam, hurried footsteps fading away. I ran outside, calling her name in vain. She had vanished into the freezing dark. I called Ethan immediately, my hands trembling. Olivia ran away. "Did she come to you?" On the other end, Ethan's voice was curt. "Sophia, I'm busy. But if she shows up, I'll keep an eye out." I stood there, stunned. "What are you saying?" "She's your daughter, no matter what." He let out a dry laugh. "She's not my daughter. And I have no ties to you anymore. I'm with someone new." "What did you say?" I felt dizzy, nearly dropping the phone. Right then, I heard a woman's voice in the background, youthful and drawn out. "Ethan, come on, I ordered the food." I recognized it immediately. Isabel, the young colleague Ethan had mentioned. I went, rigid, my heart stopping. While Olivia and I were drowning in a crisis, Ethan already had another life with another woman. I screamed in despair, "You can't do this to Olivia. She's hurting, she's looking for her father." But all I heard was a sigh. "Sophia, don't complicate this. Olivia isn't mine. You'd better take care of her yourself." The call cut off, leaving me in a dark room with an empty heart. I buried my face in my hands and cried. terrified for my child and furious at Ethan's cruelty. I hurriedly called my sister. Denise. Olivia ran away. She went to Ethan, but he wouldn't take her in. Can you help me look? Denise answered at once. Calm down. I'm on my way. Olivia's just overwhelmed. She won't go far. Past midnight, Denise and I drove around every place Olivia usually went. The park, the library, even the ice cream shop near school. All empty. I called nonstop, but her phone was off. In that moment, I understood the pain of a mother stripped of the right to protect her child. All I could do was pray for her safety and hope that, no matter how angry she was, she would still remember me as her last safe place. At dawn, I curled up in the back seat, eyes bloodshot. Denise put a hand on my shoulder. Sophia, Olivia will come back. She loves you. But you need to be ready. When she does, things won't be the same. I nodded, my heart twisting. Because from the moment Olivia cried out, "Who am I to you now?" our relationship had veered onto a road no one expected. 2 days crawled by like a nightmare. I barely ate or slept, pacing through a house emptied of my daughter's laughter. Every time the phone rang, my heart clenched. I called everywhere, notified the police, but the answer was always the same. Give it some time. Kids this age often run off for a few days and come back. But Olivia wasn't like other kids. She had never run away, never gone silent. I felt in my bones that something was different. On the third morning, just as I collapsed onto the sofa from exhaustion, my phone buzzed. An unknown number lit up. I answered with shaking hands. Sophia? This is Natalie. My heart dropped. Natalie, is Olivia with you? Is she safe? On the other end, Natalie sighed. She showed up at my house the night before last. She was soaked in the rain, sobbing. I didn't turn her away. I fed her, let her sleep. But I didn't push her. I just wanted you to know she's okay. I burst into tears, a wild mix of relief and confusion. Thank you. Thank you for not leaving her out there. Can I come see her now? Natalie hesitated. Sophia, I think she needs time. She's very angry. I get the sense she needs neutral ground to breathe. But if you want, you can come this afternoon. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. I'll come. That afternoon, I drove nearly 3 hours to New Hampshire. When I parked in front of Natalie's small blue house, the windows glowed. My heart pounded. I took a deep breath and stepped out. Natalie opened the door, her face gentle. Come in. I entered a warm living room, the faint smell of baking in the air. And there was Olivia on the sofa, hugging a pillow, eyes swollen. My heart wrenched. I wanted to run to her, but she looked away and clutched the pillow tighter. Natalie said softly, Olivia, your mom is here. Olivia didn't answer. She turned her face aside. I sat opposite her, my voice breaking. Olivia, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have kept it from you. I just wanted to protect you. But I was wrong. She bit her lip, eyes brimming. If you really wanted to protect me, you wouldn't have let me end up like this. I don't know who I am anymore. I feel like a stranger caught between two families. I reached toward her. No matter what, you're my daughter. No one can change that. But Olivia wiped her tears and shook her head. She stood and went upstairs. In that moment, Natalie came over and placed a hand on my shoulder. Sophia, give her a little time. Lena's starting to notice, too. She doesn't understand why I'm so concerned about Olivia. She's jealous. I'm afraid one day this will all blow up. I gripped Natalie's hand, gratitude and helplessness flooding me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room, listening to the wind outside the window. And then I received a strange text. See the consequences now. Olivia isn't your child. This all happened because you kept secrets. Ethan. I went numb. I recognized the tone. Ethan had written the anonymous letter from the very beginning. No one else. He had planted doubt in me and Olivia, pushing our family to the edge. My hands shook as I opened my laptop to trace the anonymous email. One small mistake, Ethan had used the company network. I tracked it in minutes. Everything was clear. Ethan had orchestrated it all, trapping Olivia and me in pain while he flaunted his relationship with Isabel. I understood his purpose at once: push the divorce faster, grab most of the assets, and hide the affair. I sat in the dark, hands trembling. There was no doubt left. Ethan had not only betrayed love, he had viciously shattered the only maternal bond I had. The next morning, as I was about to leave, Lena appeared on the stairs. She looked at me, her eyes unfamiliar. "You're Olivia's mom, right? Why is my mom so worried about her?" "What about me?" Natalie faltered. "Lena, honey, it's not what you think." But I could see the hurt in Lena's eyes. She felt the difference despite our efforts to hide it. I sat down and spoke gently. "Lena, you're special. Your mom loves you more than anything. And me, I just want to help Olivia through this." Lena looked at me for a long time, then turned away, her voice small. "I don't understand why everyone keeps secrets. But I know. Something's wrong." I fell silent. A feeling rose in me. Sooner or later, the truth would break open, and none of us could escape the fallout. When I left Natalie's house, I sat in the car gripping my phone. I read Ethan's text again, and resolve surged in me. He had planted the seeds of our ruin. But I would not let him keep controlling my life or my daughter's. In the distance, streetlights bled into the misty sky. I knew I was heading into a battle not just with the truth, but with my ex-husband, the man who had betrayed both love and the fragile trust that remained. I sat in my attorney's office with a thick stack of files on the table. Those pages held financial records Ethan never wanted anyone to see. He had been a co-executive at our company, but the shady transfers, the side account transactions, even a slush fund to cover lavish expenses with Isabel. All of it was now documented. My lawyer, Mr. Harris, pushed his glasses up and nodded. "Sophia, this evidence is strong enough to force Ethan out of his glasses." Executive role. "I'll file with the business court right away." "Are you prepared for a long fight?" "Ethan will push back." I clenched my fists. "I have no choice. He didn't just wreck our marriage. He used these tactics to hide an affair. I won't let him keep controlling my life or my daughter." Harris pondered for a moment, then continued, "Beyond the company, the most important thing is custody of Olivia. You need to be ready. Ethan will try to use the DNA results to argue you have no biological tie, to gain leverage." I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "I've raised Olivia since her first cry. I stayed up through her fevers, held her hand when she learned to walk. No lab report can erase that." Harris nodded. "We'll argue exactly that. That Olivia has lived her entire life with you, that motherhood isn't only blood, but attachment, love, and stability. Family courts put a lot of weight on that." I stayed quiet for a moment, then said what I'd been holding back for a long time. "Natalie has agreed to testify for me. She understands that Olivia belongs where she grew up. She also believes the best thing is for Olivia to stay with me." Harris looked a bit surprised, then smiled. "In that case, we have a very credible witness. This will be a major advantage." On the first day in court, Ethan walked in wearing a crisp suit, his face cold, with Isabel at his side. I caught the satisfied gleam in her eyes as she passed me, as if this were a game they were winning. But I refused to crumble under that look. The judge sat sternly on the bench. The hearing opened with Ethan accusing me of deception, claiming that Olivia was neither his biological child nor mine, and that he had the legal right to separate her from me. I clenched my fists, trying to stay calm. When it was our turn, Harris stood and spoke firmly. "Your Honor, we do not dispute the DNA test. But we emphasize that for 15 years, Mrs. Sophia Miller has been the sole person to raise, care for, and love Olivia as her own child. That bond of motherhood cannot be erased by a hospital's mistake. We also have a witness who will affirm this." Natalie was called to the stand. She looked at me for a long moment, then turned to the judge. Her voice was steady but emotional. "I am Olivia's biological mother, according to the DNA results. But I have not raised her a single day. I believe Olivia's place is with Sophia. Sophia is the one who gave her a home and a complete childhood. I will never seek custody of Olivia, because I know that would only hurt her more." The courtroom fell silent. Ethan snapped his head toward Isabel, his face flushing purple. I saw a flash of confusion in Isabel's eyes. The judge took notes for a while, then asked me, Mrs. Sophia, do you have anything you wish to say directly to the court? I stood, my voice trembling but resolute. Olivia is my daughter. I don't need paperwork to prove it. I have the scars from my C-section, and thousands of memories across 15 years. I know her dream is to become a musician. I know she's afraid of the dark and only sleeps when she hears a soft lullaby. I have been there for every step she's taken. If love is the proof required, then I believe I've already proven it. I saw the judge's gaze soften a little, as if listening with a full heart. The hearing stretched on for hours. Ethan's side tried to pivot, claiming I was clinging to image and only protecting company assets. But Harris countered with a series of financial records showing Ethan's embezzlement. Numbers don't lie. When the court recessed, I stepped into the hallway. Natalie came over and placed a hand on my shoulder. You did very well. Olivia needs to hear that, even when she's angry. I looked at her, eyes brimming. Thank you for standing with me. I don't know what I would have done without you. Natalie smiled softly. We're both mothers. And we only want what's best for our children. That evening when I got home, Olivia was already sitting on the steps, her eyes swollen. I walked over, and before I could speak, she said quietly, I heard everything in court. I'm still angry with you. But I know you fought for me. I just don't know if I'm brave enough to forgive. I sat beside her and wrapped an arm around her thin shoulders. I don't need you to forgive me right away. I just want you to know I will never abandon you, no matter what happens. Olivia leaned her head on my shoulder, silent. In that moment, I saw a fragile ray of hope, like a faint light at the end of a tunnel. But I also understood clearly. This fight had only begun, and Ethan would not give up easily. In the days after the hearing, the atmosphere at home began to shift. Olivia still kept some distance, but she no longer shut herself in her room. I started to hear music again from the violin upstairs, the sound both shaky and strong, like a young heart finding a way out of sorrow. One evening, as I set a dinner tray by her door, Olivia cracked it open. She looked at me, eyes still damp. Mom, my school has a performance tomorrow. If you're free, could you come? I froze, my heart stopping for a beat. It had been a long time since Olivia had invited me to anything. I nodded quickly, afraid she'd change her mind if I hesitated. I'll be there. I'll sit in the front row. The next day, the high school auditorium shimmered with lights. Parents bustled, conversations buzzing. I sat in the second row, heart pounding. When the curtain lifted, Olivia stepped out, violin in hand. But what stunned me was who sat beside her, Lena, Natalie's daughter, at a gleaming black piano. I glanced over and saw Natalie a few rows away. She gave a small smile, her eyes a mix of nerves and emotion. On stage, Olivia and Lena exchanged a brief nod. Then the music began. The violin soared, woven with the piano's warm depth. I held my breath. It was the lullaby I had arranged long ago to put Olivia to sleep. Now, two children, one carrying my blood, one carrying the love I had poured out for 15 years, were playing it together. Tears flooded my eyes, blurring the stage lights. I couldn't tell who was biological and who was adopted. All I saw were two girls finding each other through music. When the piece ended, the room erupted in applause. Olivia looked into the audience, her gaze finding mine. She smiled. I stood and clapped until my hands burned. After the performance, Olivia came over and hugged me. Mom, I've been thinking a lot. I don't know how to get past everything, but when I played with Lena, I felt a thread tying it all together. I want to come home. I held her tight and whispered, "Thank you for coming back, Olivia. I will never let go of you again." Natalie walked up and took my hand. I think it's time we let the girls chart their own path. I don't want to divide anything. I just want to be here to support them. I nodded, gratitude swelling in my chest. We're both mothers. And we'll walk this road together, even if it's full of thorns. In the weeks that followed, Olivia gradually opened up. She talked to me more, sometimes sharing school stories or rehearsals with Lena. The two girls began visiting each other on weekends. Lena was cautious, afraid of hurting Olivia, but bit by bit awkwardness gave way to laughter. One afternoon, as I was making dinner, Olivia set a plate of greens on the table and suddenly asked, "Mom, if both Lena and I call you Mom, would that feel strange?" I choked up and turned to her. "It wouldn't feel strange, only happy. My love is big enough for both of you." Olivia smiled, a new trust shining in her eyes. Meanwhile, news about Ethan spread through the media. After losing in court, he officially lost his executive role at the company. But it didn't end there. Police launched an investigation into financial fraud. Evidence poured out, and headlines exploded. His reputation collapsed in days. Isabel vanished without a trace, leaving Ethan to face the charges alone. I read the reports without anger, just a deep sadness. The man who once vowed to protect his family had destroyed it with his own hands. One evening, while I was folding laundry, Olivia came in and sat beside me. After a long silence, she said softly, "Mom, I was so mad at you. But now I understand. You're human too, you get scared, you hurt. I want to forgive you." I hugged her, tears spilling over. "I don't need your forgiveness, only for you to know I love you with all my heart." In that moment, I felt part of my heart knit back together. Olivia had come home, not perfectly whole, but enough to tell me we could rebuild. A few days later, Natalie brought Lena over. The girls sat side by side in the living room, practicing and laughing. Natalie and I sat in the kitchen, listening to the music drift down, feeling the house finally filling with life and hope. Natalie sipped her tea and looked at me. "Sophia, I think there will come a time when we have to tell them the full truth. But for now they have each other. That's what matters most." I nodded. "Yes. They've found each other, and that's a gift they both deserve." The violin and piano blended, rising and falling in long, lingering notes. I sat and listened, letting the tears fall, but this time they were tears of simple happiness. I knew that after everything, we were learning how to move forward. The past couldn't be erased, but the present could still be saved by love. I started a habit of writing down each fragment of memory, each day that passed, as a way to keep myself from collapsing. In my small study, under the warm glow of a desk lamp, I opened a new leather notebook and wrote the first line, "For Olivia and Lena." I wrote for Olivia, the child I held from her first breath, the one I sat up with through high fevers, the little hand I led into kindergarten. I wrote for Lena, the child who carries my blood and features, but grew up in another pair of arms. I told the story of my journey, every mistake, every shattered belief, every tear, and the rare moments when hope still flickered. Many nights, Olivia walked in while I was holding the pen. She'd sit down, silently watching the page. Once, she asked softly, "Who are you writing for, Mom?" I smoothed her hair. "For you. And for Lena. So you both know what we went through to be able to sit together today." Olivia lowered her head, her voice small. "Don't leave out the things you did for me. Even when I was angry, I remembered everything." I took her hand, my heart tight. "I won't leave anything out. Every little thing is proof that we belong to each other." One afternoon, Lena came over. She brought a stack of sheet music and set it on the table, shyly. "I'd like you to look at these. Could you? I mean, Mom, could you give me some feedback?" I froze at the word, Mom, from her lips. Not Olivia, Lena. That sound filled an empty space in my heart. I smiled and pulled her to sit beside the piano. "Of course. Which piece do you want me to hear first?" Lena blushed and opened the music. Her fingers trembled on the keys, but the sound was true. I sat next to her, showing her how to press deeper, how to keep time with her breath. The room filled with music, and for a moment, I truly felt I had both of my children. Olivia stood at the doorway, quietly watching. She stepped in and set her violin on her shoulder. "Can I play with you?" The two girls looked at each other and nodded. Piano and violin wove together, filling the small room. I sat still, listening, tears falling unchecked. After practice, Olivia walked over and took Lena's hand. "Can we consider each other sisters?" Lena hesitated, then nodded. "If you want." I wrapped them both in my arms, my heart overflowing. In the days that followed, the girls came to me more often. Sometimes they cooked together in the kitchen, laughing as flour flew everywhere. Sometimes they sat in the yard, reading and debating favorite characters. The house that had felt cold was suddenly full of laughter. I kept writing my journal. I recorded the look in Olivia's eyes when she called me mom, with firm conviction, as if declaring it to the world. I recorded the first time Lena hugged me on her own, her breath quick against my shoulder. I recorded the moments I sat alone, thinking of Ethan, the man who lost everything to his own selfishness. One evening, when I was finishing a long page, Olivia said suddenly, "Mom, I want to read what you wrote for me." I hesitated, then handed her the notebook. She read slowly, her eyes filling. When she reached the line, "You were the only child who pulled me out of the dark when I thought I had lost everything. You are the reason I kept living." Olivia burst into tears and threw her arms around me. "Mom, I'm sorry. I doubted you too much." I held her tight, patting her back. "No, Olivia. I'm the one who's sorry. I wasn't brave enough to tell you the truth sooner." Lena sat quietly in the corner, witnessing everything. She walked over and set a hand on my shoulder. "Mom, I want to write in the notebook too. So you know that even though I didn't grow up with you, I still want to be part of this family." I handed her the pen, my hand shaking with emotion. Lena wrote in neat, rounded letters, "I'm Lena. Thank you, Mom, for finding me." I closed the notebook and pressed it to my chest, as if holding both my children in my arms. Late one afternoon, I stood by the window and looked out at the yard. Olivia and Lena were playing, tossing a ball back and forth, their laughter echoing across the little space. Their hair flew in the evening sun, their eyes bright with joy. I whispered to myself, there are things in life we can't choose, but love is always a choice. And I choose not to lose it ever again. A breeze slipped through the window, carrying the scent of lavender from the backyard. I inhaled deeply, feeling the peace I had fought so hard to reclaim. In that moment, I knew that the journey for me, for Olivia, and for Lena would still have challenges, but we had found each other. And love would be the thread that bound us forever. Every time I look back on the road we've traveled, my heart still trembles with loss and with the unexpected miracles. From an anonymous letter, from sleepless nights of fear, I finally found my two children, one I raised with love, one I bore in my own body. Maybe life always hides trials no one can foresee, but from them we learn that love can heal every wound, beyond bloodlines. What about you? If one day you discovered the child you raised wasn't your biological child, what would you do? Would you choose to run from the truth, or hold tight to the love you've built over the years? Share your thoughts in the comments, because everyone's story deserves to be heard. And if you want to keep following along, hearing more heartfelt stories about family, love, and the choices we make in life, please subscribe so you don't miss out. Who knows, maybe the next story will make you see your own life in a whole new way.